The desert was painted gold that morning, silent except for the crunch of boots over dry sand. Sheriff Ethan Cole, known across the frontier as the Cold Cowboy, rode alone through the dying wind. His horse, Dusty, snorted under the weight of the sun. Ethan's hat shadowed a face carved by war, wind, and regret. He wasn't chasing anyone this time. He was running from ghosts. 3 years ago, his wife and newborn son had died in a raid. Since then, he'd been a wanderer, hired gun, bounty hunter, and sometimes savior to strangers. But peace, he'd forgotten what that word meant. As he crossed the canyon pass, the faint sound of movement caught his ear. Instinct made him draw his revolver. A shadow darted between the rocks. Ethan slid off Dusty, gun steady, eyes sharp. "Come out slow," he warned, his voice cold as steel. No answer. Just the whisper of the wind and the rasp of someone breathing. Hurt, weak, afraid. Ethan moved closer. Behind a cactus, half buried in sand, lay a young Apache woman. Her face was streaked with dirt and blood, one arm wrapped around her ribs. Her long black hair clung to her cheeks, and her dress was torn from running. She looked up terrified as his shadow fell across her. Her lips trembled. "Don't shoot, cowboy." "Please." Ethan's finger tensed on the trigger. He'd seen this before, Apache scouts playing dead, luring white men close. He'd buried too many who trusted too easily. "Why shouldn't I?" he asked coldly. "Your people burned my town." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't look away. "Because I have nothing left to take from you, only something to give." That stopped him. The desperation in her voice didn't sound like a trick. Ethan crouched, keeping his gun steady. "What could you give me, girl?" She swallowed hard. "A family, a home. If you let me live, I'll give you both." For a moment the world seemed to stop, the wind, the sand, even his heartbeat. Her words hit something deep inside him, something he'd buried under dust and gunpowder. Ethan studied her face. She wasn't lying. She was broken, starved, trembling, but her eyes burned with something strange. Not fear, not deceit, hope. "Who are you?" he finally asked. "My name is Nita," she whispered. "My tribe turned on me after I tried to save a wounded settler child. They said I betrayed my blood. They left me here to die." Ethan hesitated, lowering his gun slightly. "You helped a settler?" "I couldn't watch a child bleed," she said, her voice soft but sure. "Now I have no tribe, and no place." He looked at her, then at the horizon, empty, endless. She wasn't his enemy anymore. She was just another soul the world had chewed up and spit out. Ethan sighed, holstering his revolver. "You'll die out here if I leave you," Nita's voice cracked. "Then don't leave me." Something in that plea melted what little ice was left around his heart. Against all reason, he lifted her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Her body was hot with fever, her skin dry as dust. He carried her to his horse and gently set her in the saddle before climbing up behind her. "You better not make me regret this," he muttered. "I won't," she whispered, leaning weakly against him. By sunset, they reached his camp near an old riverbed. Ethan laid her down, built a small fire, and poured water over a cloth to clean her wounds. She winced but didn't cry. "You're stubborn," he said quietly. "So are you," she murmured with a faint smile. Ethan almost smiled back, almost. "You talk too much for someone half dead." "Talking keeps me alive," she said. He shook his head, hiding a small chuckle. There was spirit in her, the kind that refused to die even when the world turned its back. After tending her wounds, he handed her a canteen. "Drink slow," she obeyed, then looked up. "Why did you help me?" Ethan poked at the fire with a stick. "Maybe because you reminded me of someone I couldn't save." Nita watched the flames dance in his eyes. "Your woman?" He nodded slowly. "My wife. Apache killed her, or so I thought." Silence fell between them, heavy but not cold. The desert night began to hum, the low whisper of coyotes, the distant cry of an owl. After a while, she spoke softly. "If I live, I'll cook, work, help with your camp. I'll be whatever you need me to be." He looked at her sharply. "You don't owe me that. I owe you my life," she said simply. "And you said you have no one." "I can be someone. Her words echoed in the night, raw and honest. Ethan didn't reply. He just looked at her, really looked. Beneath the dirt and bruises, she was beautiful in a quiet, untamed way. A woman of the land, shaped by fire and loss just like him. When she fell asleep beside the fire, Ethan sat awake, staring at the stars. He couldn't help thinking about what she'd said. A family, a home. It sounded like a dream, but maybe, just maybe, it was one worth believing in again. By morning, Nita's fever broke. She awoke to the smell of coffee and jerky frying in a pan. Ethan turned as she stirred. "You're awake," he said, his tone softer than before. "Good, you need strength. We move soon." "Where?" "North. There's a small cabin near Pine Ridge. It was my family's." Nita's eyes widened. "You'll take me there?" Ethan nodded. "If you can ride," she smiled weakly. "I'll try. You'll see, I'll make you proud, cowboy." Ethan turned away to hide the faint smile tugging at his lips. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Maybe trouble, maybe betrayal. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. The morning sun rose behind them as Ethan and Nita rode north. The desert slowly gave way to rolling plains, tall grass whispering against the hooves of Dusty. For hours they didn't speak. Only the rhythm of the ride and the quiet wind filled the silence between them. Ethan's mind turned over the night's memories, her voice trembling, her words about giving him a family. He told himself it was nonsense, a fevered promise from a desperate woman. Yet every time he looked at her, something inside him softened. By evening, the faint outline of a cabin appeared on the horizon. The roof sagged a little, the porch was gray from years of sun, but it was still standing. "My wife and I built this place," Ethan said quietly as they approached. "Never thought I'd come back." Nita touched his arm gently. "Then maybe it's time you did." They dismounted and Ethan helped her down. Her steps were shaky, but she refused his arm. "I can walk," she said with stubborn pride. Inside, dust coated everything, chairs, shelves, even the old cradle by the window. Ethan paused at the sight of it, his throat tightening. Nita followed his gaze. "Was that for your child?" He nodded. "Yeah, he didn't live long enough to sleep in it." She lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry." Ethan turned away, clearing his throat. "You rest. I'll get a fire going." She watched as he worked, the rough way his hands moved, the care he took setting logs just right. There was pain in every motion, but also something strong, something that refused to break. When the fire began to crackle, Nita smiled softly. "It feels warm, safe." He glanced at her. "Don't get used to it. You'll be gone once you're well enough." Her face fell, but she nodded. "If that's what you want." Ethan didn't answer. He didn't know what he wanted anymore. Over the next few days, they settled into an easy rhythm. Ethan repaired the roof and gathered firewood. Nita cleaned the cabin, cooked, and even laughed sometimes, a sound Ethan hadn't heard in years. One morning, he found her outside washing clothes in the river, singing softly in Apache. The melody was hauntingly beautiful. "You sing good," he said, leaning on a fence post. She smiled. "It's a song about healing. My mother used to sing it when the world felt heavy." Ethan's chest tightened. "The world's always heavy." "Then sing louder," she replied, eyes sparkling. He couldn't help but chuckle. "You've got spirit, I'll give you that." "You like that?" "Maybe," he said, smiling faintly. That night, as the stars stretched across the sky, they shared stories. She told him about her tribe, about the betrayal that left her exiled. He told her about the war, about losing his wife and child. When he finished, Nita reached for his hand. "You don't have to carry their ghosts forever," she whispered. "They'd want you to live." Her touch was warm, comforting, dangerous. Ethan didn't pull away. Days turned to weeks. Her wounds healed, her cheeks filled with color, and her laughter began to echo through the old cabin. Ethan found himself looking forward to mornings again, the sound of her humming, the smell of her cooking, the way her eyes softened when she looked at him. He told himself she was just company, someone to fill the silence. But every night, When she sat beside the fire and looked at him like he was more than a broken man, his heart betrayed him. One evening, while fixing the fence, he saw riders in the distance, 5 men, their faces painted, carrying rifles. His gut turned cold. Apache warriors. He ran inside. "Nita, get down!" She froze. "Who is it?" "Your people," he said grimly, loading his rifle. "Looks like they came back to finish what they started." Nita grabbed his arm. "No, they're not here for you. They're here for me. They think I betrayed them. Then they'll kill you both," he said. "Stay behind me." Before she could argue, the men arrived, surrounding the cabin. Their leader, tall and scarred, shouted something in Apache. Nita stepped forward. "Wait, don't shoot." The leader sneered. "You helped the white man. You are no longer Apache." Ethan aimed his rifle. "You'll leave her be." The man laughed cruelly. "She belongs to no one." The first shot rang out, splintering the porch post beside Ethan. He fired back, dropping one rider. Chaos erupted. Bullets tore through wood and dust. Nita screamed his name. Ethan tackled her to the floor as bullets ripped through the window. When the gunfire finally stopped, the air was thick with smoke and fear. Ethan rose slowly, bleeding from a graze on his arm. "Stay here." He stepped outside, rifle ready. 2 men lay still. The rest were gone, riding hard into the desert. He turned back to Nita, his breath shaking. "It's over." She ran to him, wrapping her arms around his chest. "You could have died." "It wouldn't be the first time," he said softly, holding her tight. "No," she whispered fiercely. "Not this time." "You saved me." "You saved us." He froze. "Us?" Nita hesitated, then looked up, tears glistening in her eyes. "Ethan, when you found me, I was already with child." His eyes widened. "Yours?" She nodded. "Yes, I didn't tell you because I thought you'd leave me behind. But now, I want this child to have a father, a home. You once said you lost your family. Let me give you one again." Ethan's heart felt like it might burst. The words hit deeper than any bullet ever could. He cupped her face in his rough hands. "You're sure?" "I'm sure," she whispered. "I want to stay." "If you'll have me." He stared at her for a long moment, then smiled, really smiled, for the first time in years. "Then you're home, Nita." Months later, the cabin was alive again. Smoke rose from the chimney, laughter echoed through the pines, and wildflowers grew along the fence. Ethan sat on the porch, rocking a tiny baby wrapped in a soft cloth. Nita stood beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder. "What should we name him?" she asked. Ethan smiled down at the child. "How about Hope?" She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "Hope Cole, I like that." The baby stirred, cooing softly. Ethan looked at Nita. "You kept your promise." "And you kept yours," she whispered. "You didn't shoot," he laughed quietly. "Best mistake I ever made." The wind blew gently across the plains, carrying the sound of their laughter into the endless sky. The cold cowboy had found warmth again, not in revenge, not in survival, but in love.